Okay, so as you know, I teach producing, I teach directing, and over that time I have gotten a number of questions from my students. And this is how I'm doing the tail end of my 90-day videos, because I just feel like I've already answered these questions. Some of them go back many years, but I feel like I will I'll answer them in video form now. It might help you, and you, if it does, you should take my class. And so let's get going. I talk about equipment in one of my lessons, and one of my students said, well, if you're, because I encourage people to hire DPs that have equipment because they know how to use it. And the question is, when you have mentioned the cost of equipment and it says some crew members bring their own equipment, my question is, if a crew member damages his equipment, is he responsible for the cost, or as a producer, should I compensate him? And so my answer to that is, it should be something you discuss beforehand. And the way I handled it in the last production I did, which was an ultra low budget, I was line producing, so I said to the audio department, which was one person, that I said, well, you have, I'm sure, a range of equipment. He said yes. He also, we talked about cameras that he could provide too. And so it's good. They know their equipment, so they'll use it effectively. They can troubleshoot because they've seen it before if things are wonky. But, you know, I said, this is an ultra low budget, and, you know, I'm in control of the budget to a certain extent, but the limitations on the budget are not mine. I'm just helping some guy put together a movie that he wants to shoot for a day. So, but I said, you know, we want it to be as good as possible, but we are not getting insurance, and we also are not, and I'll come back to that in a minute, are not, you know, we understand if you don't want to bring out your Alexa, you don't have to. If you're not familiar, that's a very expensive camera. So he just said, all right, and I said, just use your judgment, but we're not covering it if it breaks, you know, because you're going to be using it. Oh, I also brought it in reference, up in reference that we we're going to have a couple PAs, and they're going to be, are you comfortable with them handling your equipment? Because you're going to be your camera department DP, and but do you want some assistance with that? Maybe setting up lights. They're your lights, but I don't know. I'm bringing on a PA that I have spoken to a bunch of times, and she seems awesome, but I don't know how comfortable you are. Some DPs are fine with it. Some DPs are like, nobody touches my equipment except people that are fully trained. And I get that. So these are all conversations you need to have in pre-production. And so maybe say, hey, so I don't anticipate this being a crazy set, but if something happens to your equipment, how do you feel about that? Or, because a lot of the time, they usually have insurance on their expensive stuff anyway, and if you're paying them, it's incorporated into the price. So that's another thing. Hey, you probably have equipment for your Blackmagic camera, so that's kind of part of it, right? So, and maybe if you're really worried about it, you write it into the contract. The production is not responsible for the fixing of equipment, you know, so there are certain things you can do. Not a lawyer, so I'm just saying that's something you want to look into, maybe do your own research or talk to a lawyer yourself. But generally, and now I'm going to talk about in general. So I've never had a problem on set, but the closest thing I've come to, like with something, well, actually, I was directing and producing a commercial, and I borrowed a camera from a friend, and I paid for that, and I had another DP come in who wasn't making me pay, and because he was helping me out because, you know, he just wanted to do it. She didn't like the way he was handling the camera, and the camera was having problems. So I called someone else, one of his friends, and rented it from somebody else and gave her money back. And, oh my God, drama. So anyway, so, because she was following him around being all like, don't touch my camera like that. So, anyway. It worked out after I got a rental from this guy, and it worked fine. And so, had something broken. We have this DP, it's not his camera, but he knows how to use the camera. And then we have me, the producer, and it's my friend. I'm sure if something had broken and if something had been like knocked over, I feel like I would have probably covered some of it, and whoever knocked it over would have covered some of it. But it's always hard to tell. And in a litigious society, you want to cover your ass. So my final piece of advice is cover your ass. And that's how I'm going to leave that. So, and work it out beforehand, before anything happens. And I'm at the point right now where there's so many different kinds of insurance for productions. I might do a whole series of videos or maybe one video on insurance, and I'm doing research on the best insurance for short films to get. And so I'm in that process right now. So I don't want to expand upon insurance for low budget and short films, but it's out there, so you can also research that. Anyway, have a good one. I will talk to you next time. And subscribe!